Hello, everyone.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be part of this context. We prepared a short presentation. Actually, in the first part, I'm going to present the context of the works somehow through some sort of a semi-theoretical perspective. And then Filip is going to present them practically, actually, what we jointly done in the past years regarding the projects. So the public spaces and places.
It's okay to share?
Yes. Yes, you can see it. The public spaces and places in post-socialist societies are victims of the neoliberal urban restructuring that depoliticize, erode, and privatize them, shrinking them to sites for passive reception of consumerist and nationalist messages, instead of being places for nurturing democratic political subjectivities. This tendency is a danger that threatens the rights and participation of citizens in democratic processes in society, freedom of speech and rule of law, and excludes all considered different and untypical, forcefully silencing the plurality of voices. There is no public life without a public and open space intended for expression of public opinion. Or as sociologist Richard Sennett would say, as in Roman times, the participation in res publica today is often reduced to socializing, and public life remains forms such as the city are falling apart. With the coronavirus pandemic, it became even clearer that technology, telephones, and social networks have become an extension not only of mental, but also of physical existence, and produce automatic and temporary creation of private as well as public space. This aspect also defines participation in political life, and the change of public life leads to a change of the private one, in which we develop our own personality differently. Privatization is the ideological driver of the post-socialist transition and the restoration of capitalism. But this transitional society was subjected to a sudden and rapid privatization of social capital through a political decision, which according to Boris Groys is an artificial political construct as well as nationalization is. So, or as he adds, a political decision was made to switch from building up communism to building up capitalism, and to that end, in complete harmony with classical Marxism, to produce artificially a class of private property owners who would become the principal protagonist of this process. Thus, there was no return to the market as a state of nature, but rather a revelation of the highly artificial character of the market itself. Public spaces began to shrink, and all this accompanied by the big history of insurgency, tons of information and images, false, true, and half-true, the exhaustion of political scandals happening every day, and corrupt collaborations, leaning on the trauma caused by the events of the 90s, polarized discussion and not agonistic. The public communication in Macedonia was raised to the level of hysteria, judgmental remarks, and provocations and hatred. This has led to a loss of argumentation, unconstructive participation in building democratic processes, underestimation of expertise, and even greater polarization and divisions in society. Anthropologist Goran Janev writes that the public space has turned into an arena for political party skirmishes, in which there is no room for an already developed expert analysis, and adds, framing any different opinion as something that comes from the opposition camp, a public debate was killed and became impossible. It can also lead to growing conflicts and intolerance on ethnic, gender, and sexual grounds. Conflict in public space can take on a violent antagonism when it is not given the opportunity to have legitimate channels of expression or to take an agonistic form. We need a non-polarized society, a society that will provide a space for exchange of opinions, ideas that will reflect the right to use the city, public space, freedom of speech, and the right to personal expression. The art of the square is the framework through which I'm reflecting on several works of art. Amongst them are the three that we would like to present here. These are the projects If Buildings Could Talk, and one iteration of it that was presented on PQ 2019, which was called this. Then it was made in the railway residential building in Skopje. The other one is the performance Universal Hall in Flames, Tragedy in 6 Decades in the building of the Universal Hall. And the third one is the Dear Republic, also a participative performance, which was made in the main post office building, or the building of the telecommunications center in the telecommunications center in Skopje, sorry. These all three projects try to construct new mechanisms and methods that the citizens can absorb in order to protect and confront the situation through application of the method reading buildings. This method develops itself by performing, that is, performs an active space instead of the static posture of the building, as an aesthetic and ethical process of creating relations and bonds. Thus, the event emerging out of the specific method is a performance, but not a physically built scenery, although it exists in a concrete building, but is an experimental and emotional modeling by an artistic process, forming and transformative, which wants to become a caring community that will act beyond its own threshold. It carries a contemporary cross-disciplinary engaged approach that unites elements of architecture, visual and performing arts and film, extending their scope and framing, and advocates for the preservation of the meaning of the public in the midst of local urban problems relating to a building in a certain city. This approach is transforming a building in a stage. Citizens are becoming actors, architecture is becoming scenography, community problems are becoming text, performance is transforming into a process of policy making. The performances created by this method lead towards the art of the square. The art of the square signifies an intervention in reality, but not individual in the spatial domains, in the factories for the workers, in front of the parliament for the workers that came of the liquidation processes, in front of the universities for the students, in front of the hospitals for the health workers, in front of the judiciary, the assembly, the ministries, but everywhere for everyone. The art of the square uses the platform in a literal or metaphorical sense, creating a symbolical space to show and present what it stands for in front of the largest audience and to invite as many like-minded people as possible. It is temporary, interventional, although it tends to have a long-lasting effect. It talks about domination and exclusion, and it is in constant conflict with exclusion tendencies. It detects problems or shortcomings in a particular context, raises questions about what to do, and suggests how to react in order to transform. And through that struggle, the public space is recreated and also reclaimed. The art of the square brings together various voices and have expressed dissatisfaction and defiance as a convenient idea of drawing a line of togetherness rather than individual flaws. Moreover, as an opportunity to form moving squares or micro public spaces of an imaginary artistic community that would reestablish the public or the public in the common, precisely by claiming the right of ownership to all and as a symbolic space for politicization. We have to work towards the common, the public to common spaces. Orest Stavridis puts it, the realm of the common emerges in a constant confrontation with state-controlled, authorized public space. That is one of the most urgent tasks that will lead to the rethinking of common spaces in which together we create a future equal for all.
The methodology of reading buildings, we divided in several steps. So I'm going to present this methodology, how we implement it on several concrete case studies in Skopje, on three buildings, and actually the fourth one that we started recently to work on it. So far we rounded it in a form of a trilogy about performances about the buildings. So this method translates the theater making protocols and builds up various artistic forms into urban context. Despite static posture of buildings, the method activates space through aesthetic and ethical processes of creating relations where the main outcome is an event as experimental and emotional artistic endeavor. Theater versus public space. So based on the same analogy as in the traditional theater making process, where we first choose the drama text, Shakespeare or Chekhov, for example, Then we have dramatic reading of chosen text with the actors on a table. Then we have mise-en-scène rehearsals with the actors on a theater stage. And finally, we have premiere on stage. In our methodology, we are transforming these steps into the urban context. So as Ivana mentioned, the building, public space, or some urban area becomes a stage. The citizens are becoming actors, architecture is becoming scenography, community problems are becoming a text, and theater performance is transformed into a process of policy making. In general, it presents a cross-disciplinary approach that unites elements of architecture, visual and performing arts, and film, extends their scopes, and advocates meanings of the public and collective realm. What is also important to mention that the method of work is not only a formal artistic approach, but also by using of this method, the idea behind is to structure and recontextualize today's meaning of public sphere and space, to re-question the position of society, to re-question the position of artistic institutions, such as theater black box or galleries white box, to open a space for artistic action out of the traditional already defined artistic institution as representatives of the position of power. So in our case, the building, public space, and the city itself is becoming a stage for action. What is also crucial for this method of working is the specifics of producing performative event in participative collaboration with the local communities, which transforms the artistic approach into a tool of advocacy, leading the certain community through a relevant process of policy making. We divide it in 5 very concrete steps. The method is based on an analogy of typical theater making protocols, consisted of choosing a text drama, dramatic reading with the actors, text adaptation for specific stage and audience, rehearsal on stage, and final outcome, the premiere. With the time, we have 5 minutes, okay. So these are short. These are the short top steps that explains the process. So we have the first step is selecting a building, in our case a text. It needs to be societal, historical, or architectural and artistic relevance. Define the certain problem in the local context related to the physical space, selected building. That's the drama in the analogy of theater. Compile information on the building. It's connected with the previous research, its history, usage, architecture. For this step, various sources are possible, like archive material, newspapers, architectural layouts, photography, as well as interviews with users, collecting personal stories and/or rumors. The fourth step is rewriting the stories, historical and personal, using fictional interventions in order to highlight meanings communicated with the building. It's not necessarily about the building per se, but with the building as the main character. So this is one of the main, aspects of our methodology of work, that we are not representing the building, but we are working with the building as a character in these performances. And the final is the most suitable artistic form of expression, depending on the context of the building of this area. Then we have rehearsed on the stage on site-specific urban context with already written text scripts for the project. Then define the mise-en-scène, which is connected, looking at the architecture space configuration so that every space relates to certain narrative. Each space represents one act in reference to the acts in theater. Then decide the tactics of involving the audience. That's almost the last part of the methodology. And at the end, we have live performance theater event. I will shortly present the 4 case studies on which we implemented this methodology of work. So we started with a railway residential building 7-8 years ago. It is a block, social housing block in Skopje in the center, built at the end of the 40s. But what is very important for this building is that there are many sharing spaces, as you can see from this aerial view. in the building. It was built for the workers of the railway company of Yugoslavia at that time, but in the 90s it was, and it's still privatized now. So all sharing spaces are now privatized. And we decided several years ago that we want to make like theater performance, theater event out of this building. How it looks, it's decaying. But what is also very interesting and important for us, was very inspirational in this process, was that inside this, beside the other sharing spaces in this building, there is cinema inside the building. Huge cinema, 8 meters high, around 200 square meters area, which was used for gatherings of the residents in the 50s, 70s, 60s, 70s for screenings, etc. And now it's abandoned. No one is using the space. So we started what was also very challenging at that time, how to make theater performance out of some urban area, especially social housing where real people live there. The people have everyday activities there. So we started, this is one of the first meetings with the residents, started to make like huge process of research and building a trust with the residents. Okay. Okay. And at the end, this is the performance that we produced out of implementing this methodology out of this building. We played several times different, and then this performance we showed on PQ in 2019 in a form of installation performance. These activities in a direction of researching the space, which ended at the end with the performance. Then the second theater performance we made was for another building next year. It's called Universal Hall in the center of Skopje, built it after the earthquake as a donation of 35 countries at that time. And it was closed because of some technical reasons. And the city of Skopje wanted to put it down. And there was huge debate in public. So the public was divided. Some of them were for put it down, some of them for reconstruction. And one theater festival in Macedonia invited us to make another performance for this building, for this problem. That's how it looks before. It's built in the 60s. So we went inside. There was no electricity, no power in the middle of pandemic, together with 15 students of theater. And we produced another theater live performance inside. We made the building to talk somehow. The third one was, again, about another space, modernistic, important building, post office in the center of Skopje, built in the 70s. And the project was called Dear Republic. This is the building, how it was before, the main central hall with murals, anti-fascistic murals inside. But what was important for this building, that it was burned 10 years ago, and that's how it looks now. And we made theater performance inside the building, implementing also this methodology. But in all these three performances, we are talking about the public, reclaiming the public space.
Okay, Philip and Ivana, I'm aware we are running out of time. Okay. It would be wonderful if we had access to the slides so that we can look at them. That would be wonderful.
And this is the fourth project that we already recently started. Another, maybe the smallest, we call it the smallest brutalistic building in the world. Yeah. So this is the. Okay, we are finished. We are out of time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you, Ivana.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Filip and Ivana. I believe they're going to stay with us throughout the panel, and then they'll be back with us for questions and comments. But now let me welcome on stage Julian Nielsen Eike, stage designer and installation artist from Germany. Welcome.
mood. And depending on that mood, she would rearrange the scenes. And although many of our scenes were pre-rehearsed, after a couple of days, Teda started to live direct and invent new storylines, characters, and scenes, all based on the book. That was, of course, the fundament for this work. But it became a bit of a life of its own.
Scheißer, der gewöhnlich ein kleines Mauerblümchen ist, kommt dann zu, sucht einen Kerl, sich anzuschmiegen und zu kuscheln. Du bist entspannt, nett und süß. Ja, sowas wünscht man sich ja immer.
So, the book that we use has two main characters. It's Grandpa and his grandson, Might. And the setup was that all the 6 performers in this performance would play each character once, but all in different constellations. So each would be Grandpa once, each would be Might once. Sometimes there would be the same collaboration. Sometimes it would be different actors in different constellations. And when we work, our performers all come from different fields. For example, here you see Ute Reintjes. Ute Reintjes is a professional actress, and Marian Mutschlechner is an art historian. And Ute Reintjes plays Grandpa, and Marian Mutschlechner in this scene plays Might. Here we see Pierre Emeux as Grandpa and Carlotta Monti-Meyer as Might.
Gefangen, Opa. Ja, voll. Gefangen. Da ist er bei mir.
So I have to speed it up a little. When I tried before, I had plenty of buffer. Now I'm somehow behind. So I want to talk about the book, the book Assisted Living and its controversy. So in 1992, Nicanor Teratologen published the book Assisted Living, and it hit the world, or especially Sweden, like a bomb. It was celebrated for its new language, for a language that merges beauty and brutality at the same time, and brings us 2 people, Grandpa and his grandson Might, who live in a dark and masochistic relationship. And it creates almost its own dark genesis. It creates a language that is beyond beauty and is absolutely disgusting. It moves from the far right ideologically to the far left, and it doesn't leave a stone untouched or unturned. So it hits the world like a storm, and all the well-known Swedish artists are, since it's a pseudonym, it seems everyone could have written it, but they find out it's the young and unknown Niklas Lundqvist, and he becomes a literary sensation. In 2016, though, investigative journalists claimed to have found a connection between the online profile Etzelino on the Swedish forum webpage Flashback that publishes very in language and content very similar material, but here of course it's lacking completely the artistic layer. So if it is so that Etzelino is Nicanor Teratologen, can we then still enjoy the book as a piece of art? And here with that question, I cut everything, and thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julian. I apologize that we have to be so brutal about time because people need space. So I would like to invite Zahra. Zahra, please come and set yourself up on stage. Zahra Fuladvand is an Iranian artist based working in Hungary, and her project is called The Reflection of the Found Audiences in the Mirror Performance.
Hi everyone, is this working? No. Hello, it's working. Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be here. I just arrived from Budapest. Actually, I'm Iranian performative artist creator, but based in Budapest. I'm PhD student at doctoral school in Hungarian University of Fine Art. So I'm like in my last chapter of a study, so finishing my dissertation, and I'm about to finish my study. In this presentation, I would like to share with you one of my performances that happened in the metro station. I would like to start my presentation with this quote. As a Slovenian poet, playwright, translator, and director of the National Theatre Museum of Slovenia, Ivo Svetina has noted, the year 1890 was undoubtedly a milestone with regard to a new understanding of the theatre. Seeing it not just as a box in which performances are held evening after evening, but also as a space that has to be subordinated to the form and content of the performance theater piece. As you all might know, when we look through the history of theater, we will see that theater had different spaces for itself. From the first natural environment, it reaches to the man-made theater building with the proscenium, and in the 20th century with the experimental theater, it's back again to the unconventional spaces. So I guess we all agree that the origins of theater go back far into the past to the religious rites. For the earliest community where the performative event happened in the outdoor found environment. This found environment is one of my keywords of this presentation, which I will repeat it many times. So actually this outdoor natural environment could be the first site for theater before the man-made theater building created. As Arneson said in his book, The Historian Theory of Environmental Scenography, found a space, which is frequently used as a setting for environmental performance, is any given space used in its existing state for performance. Most often a space not originally intended for performance. So actually we are talking about pre-existing spaces, which are not building for the theater, which already existed, and maybe we change their function. I started to explore this pre-existing environment for my performative creation from my earliest encounter with the phenomena of theater. So performing in the natural cave, as you saw it in the previous slide, Melpomene 2013. In Tehran, actually performing in Metro Line 2 in Budapest, The Mirror, which I will talk about it in this presentation. Performing in the street in front of my building, 280 days, and also performing in the hospital room. As you see in this photo, 14 days is a video which shoot in the hospital room. 280 days is a performance happening in front of my building, and I projected some images from the window of my room, and Triangles 2020, which happened in the old factory in Budapest, which is now Artus Studio. So they have a huge abandoned space that you can use it for your creation. And the good thing that in the second floor, you can see this huge abandoned space, and the basement, they have a little gallery space that you can exhibit. So we shoot triangles in the abandoned space, and then we exhibited in the gallery in the Artus Studio 2020. Now let's talk with more details about mirror performance. Beside the environment of performance, during my artistic career as a performative art creator, I was always interested to explore the relationship of the environment and the people which we found in that environment. We can call them found audiences. So in Mirror, which happened in the metro line, in this performance, Hungarian performer Bernadette Jobbgi, covered totally with the black veil, appear in M2 metro with the large mirror in her hands. Actually, covering in this black veil is the metaphor which I got it from Iran, and as an Iranian woman, we are still forced to have veil. And my first questions when I moved to Europe, anyone see me and ask me, "Are you Iranian?" Yes. Is it true that you should veil when you are in the public space? And I have to say yes. And it was really a question that many people ask me, and it brings this concept that I should do some performance about it. But that's true that we are not covering like this. I little bit exaggerated because this is the performance, but it was very interesting for me to see the reactions of the people who are the passenger of the metro. So we had different reactions. As you see in these photos, there were some of them who were interesting and they wanted to ask some question, what's going on? Actually, I didn't tell you that I was sitting in front of this performer who held the mirror, and I was recording with my cell phone. And then when she was moving the mirror around, you could see the reactions of the people in the mirror. Some people get so curious, interested. Some of them really scared, and just they keep distance and they change their direction. They didn't want to get close. And some people are really getting angry. So there was a lady, actually old lady, she told me that I have to stop and we shouldn't do these things in the public space. The 6 minute and 27 second selection of this video included these different reactions, has been exhibited in parallel Hungary exhibition in group project of the student of doctoral school. And actually January 2020. Here is some photos from the exhibition. So I chose a corner, installed the video so the audience could see the video, and beside that I had the model with this black veil, and at the opening also we had the live performance. The same we did in the metro, it happened in the gallery space with the real audience, but it was different because these audience are not the passenger of the metro. They knew that they're going to be a artistic performance, so they were ready. So we didn't have any strange reaction. Everyone was so ready for that. Here is some photos of the opening of the exhibition. So why metro, why public spaces? I chose metro in Budapest since this site almost always carried very strong political, social, and economic association and connections with the people. The people who are in this site, in the metro, they can become as a found audience whose expectation, cultural and social association is connected with that space. Despite the regular audience in the conventional theater building, which they can buy a ticket, choose a seat, and go and sit and watch the performance, these people who we can find in these public spaces, they don't have any preordained or expectation about what's going to happen. That's why the reaction is very natural, and I can say is much more honest, rather than the people who already knew that they're gonna go and watch something. So as I told you that I'm always interested to explore this unconventional pre-existing environment that could be a corner in the street in front of my building, or it could be in the park or in the hospital room. And I'm always interested to see how the relationship of the people who are already passing their life, their ordinary life, everyday life, connected with these spaces is different, and how is it if something like a performance happening there. So currently I'm also in my dissertation working on these keywords. Two keywords is found audience and found environment. And that's it for this presentation. But sorry, I would like to show you like 2 minutes of the video, because the 6 minutes I just found it is gonna be very long, and this just 2 minutes of the video. But here is my website. If you are interested to watch all the video, you can follow my website. And thank you so much. I will show you the video. Sound.
A nagyvárat tér végállomás következik. A repülőtér a 200-as helyezésű autóbusszal érhető el.
Next station is Nagyvárat, where this train terminates. Change here for bus 200E to the airport.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Zahra, for your presentation. Thank you very much for being spot on time. Barbara. So we would like to invite, well, please stay here. We would like to invite Juliana here, and I believe Filip and Ivana are also online. So we have now 24 minutes for questions, which is wonderful. We hoped for 30 minutes, but we've got 24, which is great. So these questions, please stay here. Please just stay here. So we have questions for the for the 3 presentations. So Ivana and Filip, Julian and Zahra. Oh, yes. Did I forget something? clearly someone is not doing their job well. That's me. Sorry, I apologize, Zahra. Someone's got to be the worst in the room. I'm taking that honor. So great apologies. So Christian Ziegler, because I thought it was after the break. Sorry. So the human forest, but Christian is online. Apologies, Christian, and hello. We can see you now, but we can't hear you yet.
Okay, so sorry about the muting. So you want me to start right now without the questioning before?
Yes, please. Sorry, that was my mistake. I'm totally incompetent. It's early in the morning.
Okay, I'm here with, actually not alone. I'm also here with Külli, Roosna and Kenneth Flak, which I don't know if you can see them already. But we are mutually presenting our work, which is a dance performance, which took a surprising turn. It's called Human Forest. So we actually are artists working in the field of dance and new media, both of us. Me from the our media side, and Külli and Kenneth are presenting their research in a minute after I present some ideas of my work. Not with image, just with me talking, and then we show the work actually which we wanted to do, which came out of the COVID necessity to continue working together remotely and trying to have progress even when we can't physically work together. So this is the setup. We were actually planning to make a huge robotic also interactive performance, combining the research, which I work in dance, also trying to get architectures into choreography. So like working with robotics and lighting systems, which are built more and more into dynamic interactive algorithms, to also with machine learning and AI, to dialogue with the moving body on stage. And similar also, that's something Kenneth and Külli will talk later. They have a different approach, also work with technology on stage. And we just wanted to put the research together in a huge production called Human Forest, where we interactively trying to map two moving bodies to an architecture robotic environment. And this sounds amazing and really exciting when we have physical space to work together with. But what do we do if we want to have progress in COVID times when we can't really work together? So we found a solution to propose a research project which combines the software we're using to drive this technology and to combine and communicate the software environments before we come together in a physical space. So that was actually the idea, that we can build telecommunication platforms and use them for dance performance and also rehearsal remotely. So how we did that, I come into a minute, but maybe first I would like to give the platform to Külli and Kenneth to show their approach to the project Human Forest. Can you switch the screen? I don't know if you can technically do that.
Yes, we can see them, but we can't hear them yet.
Yes. Okay, hello from us as well, from Estonia. And just a little bit from our side, I am Külli, Roosna. Kenneth will add his own impressions in a minute as well. And we are, we could be called dance artists and media artists. We have worked like 14 years together, and around 7-8 years we've been using mini-B movement sensors, accelerometers, which you use in our movement performances or dance performances, and mainly extending our movement through the sound, but also through the visual, lights, and with the GRIS, also the ability to actually influence and control architecture or robotics. It was the new bit for us. And one thing that I want to highlight from our own approach, but also with a project with GRIS, is this high possibility for noticing these feedback loops. Because as a dance artist, I noticed this ongoing feedback loop between my lived experience and my more objective physical body. So there is an ongoing influence going on without any digital technology. And when you add through the sensors, for example, the ability to move sound, my movement starts to cause sound, and the parameters of my movement matter for the sound. And the sound comes back to my experiential state and changes the way I move. And so there is a possibility to influence through the sound or expand the loop. But with the architecture, it would have been just also very different experience to change the experience, which changes the movement, which changes the architecture. So that's my takeaway.
Yeah, and there are quite a lot of interesting things happening also already in this project, stuff that we have not done before. Obviously, we have not yet controlled robotics with our sensor technology, but what happened, as Chris mentioned, that we had to find ways to get over the fact that we are sitting here in Estonia, and Chris is in Germany. And how do we, and part of the time also in the US. So how could we actually use our sensors, like send our data and our sound to Chris, have it influence his control software of the robotics, and then have this software coming back to us in order to influence our system, which was one step more complicated than the usual setting up of multi-platform setup. So we work with Linux, we work with SuperCollider and open frameworks, all whereas Chris works with a totally different stack of operating system and software, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about. And then we were using the open sound control protocol for this bouncing back and forth, which on a normal network would be easy, would be totally fine. But what we discovered was that you could basically do the same thing using a VPN, a virtual private network, which just opened up so many more doors. Of course, the latency of that is a lot more than would be for any other kind of like the regular local area network. So, but yeah,
but still expanding the reach of our people.
Yeah, exactly. So we could literally control stuff with our movements, things that are happening in Germany from Estonia. So Chris.
Yeah, can I come back on screen? Thank you, Kenneth and Külli. And I would like to go right into a presentation of some images and an excerpt of the actual Twitch performance we did. We used the TV channel or online TV channel Twitch, which is a gaming environment, but it's interesting because we can stream and also have communication of the audience. So we just used it. Maybe you could also do Vimeo or YouTube, but we just decided to go with Twitch. But this is the presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is the global montage, which is actually a montage of two older pieces we did. On top, you see the forestry environment, which is the robotic environment made out of 13 motors and an LED, a double LED system, which goes up and down, is a mechanical matrix. And downstairs also we see also a rehearsal also with sensors on the wrist of Külli. Maybe on her right arm you see the band, the wrist, really small, fabulous little sensors. They made also almost invisible for the audience, but you can see actually the movement in sound with this. And here's the first image we did. And then this is an excerpt which had what Kenneth said, the combination of VPN and also open sound, OBS, and also Jitsi here in this as a video conference. And on top of it, the My Software Maximus P, which is a software which also drives stage systems and also video data at the same time. And we managed in this screenshot the first time to have the sensor making images, and the images, actually the video channel is driving the robotic movement. So there's one channel which drives the movement, mechanical movement, and one drives the colors of the system. So the left one is the grayscale, drives the shape of the matrix, and the right one is the video. So we can use actually the video channel to drive a mechanical system. So that was the kind of fascinating fact, which we said, hey, let's drive the system through streaming and VPN, open sound control. So open sound control is kind of an extension of MIDI. So we can send sound data through lists, which are more complex to drive complex sound systems. So this one is actually the setup which we had. So we had the streaming from the sensors, which generated an image. And also we had sound from Tallinn coming to me. And I was using that data to generate a matrix with a 3D system. So just converting the images into a shape. And the shape was as a matrix of position data sent back to the sensors and looped back the, Kenneth, when I say something bullshit, you'd correct me. So I think the matrix was kind of a huge equalizer, changing the sound on the spot. So this is a kind of an experiment we did, and I can show it with the Twitch streaming maybe as a little excerpt. We don't have so much time, so I go right into, let me see if I hope, can I go back, and I have to check the presentation to see if I switched on shared sound and video. This is it, important that I can show you the video. So we go to, I think I found on this part here, where we can start again.
Go too much into detail.
So you have to
we'd like to talk about
put
the
sound
system,
up.
what we're actually now doing in maybe some minutes. So we have Twitch TV, which we discovered as our platform now to just inform and invite people to just witness or be part of our rehearsal, just to watch what we are doing. We have a Zoom channel, which is, quite everybody knows that, a video channel between two worlds. So there's Tallinn connected to Germany, but we also have a back channel, a second video channel for our system to communicate. That's something we demonstrate in the first scene. There's a sound channel which goes straight from Tallinn to me, and I will send up the Twitch. I'm just rendering everything together into Twitch. But there's a mutual data channel which we send data back and forth. And that's the interesting
They go
part.
further.
So we are trying to...
So, sorry, this is the...
So with no further ado, I would like to try. This is now hot, the system. I hope it works. So we are quite excited and don't know if it's crashing. So we go to the first setup now. So you have to start the visualization matrix on your side. Okay. So let's see if it comes back to something. Yep. I think, oops, no. What is that window here? There's a oh, yeah, I know why. Let me see, sorry. So, okay, I don't see your layout properly.
Let's go a little further in the development. It was real time.
So now we see, this is the 3D environment here. Let me see. This is a 3D environment. You see it's a 3D environment which is actually moving according to the circles. So the more the circles come in, the more the 3D world is transformed.
So then we just put it on an overlay.
So Külli is in the front, in the left front, and Kenneth is in the back.
So this is another module.
And I hold it on half
level. That is changing the whole shape of a plane. So that was the idea of this scene. And on the lower side, you see the information of the sensors displayed on my system, and I change the shape with the simulation software. Okay, so I think this is just an excerpt of what one can do, actually trying to save the times of not being in one space and trying to have progress with ideas of combining complex systems. And I see we have 1 minute, so maybe Kenneth and Külli, you have a concluding statement for that project. I would like to say, I would like to see it in real space, so really happening, that people also physically can participate, because dance is a physical dance form. And I just dying to come together to really make it happening in real space, and hope that we can also use this telematic rehearsal software platforms maybe for preparing the real rehearsal better. So my opt would be to not say this is just a temporal thing of COVID forcing us to work remotely. Maybe we can use it also to prepare a better effective physical rehearsal in the future with very complex systems, which of course we need development time before we come together in a rehearsal. That's something which is something also a waste of time and space and resources if we sit there and just do programming in an environment. So this is something we can spare now. Okay, Kenneth, Külli, can you shift the screen?
Yeah. So yeah, we're basically running a little bit out of time, but absolutely very quite interesting to see how this would actually pan out in a real physical situation. As
I just say that more research is in our website, and Chris has his own, and we have roosnaflak.com, and that's where we present our research and these ongoing ideas and different.
Thanks.
Okay, my website is just movingImages.de, where you can also see the video of the streaming. And hopefully we are working on possibilities maybe to show it in 1 or 2 years' time. Right now it's just with all the post-COVID delays and all the things scheduled in theater, as you can imagine, it's really hard to find the platform to present it. So thank you for the invitation, PQ. So I was also some years presenting there. It's always nice to hear also the interesting parts of the overlays of scenography into other areas. So we are trying to also, really trying to push the envelope in terms of robotic scenography and dance, which is, I think, also more and more interesting with augmented reality and VR environments coming more and more into place. And not replacing the traditional theater, hopefully, but actually expanding it. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Külli. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for the presentation. Please stay with us for the discussion. This is the second attempt at Q&A. So I'm gonna ask Zahra and Julian back on stage, please. And I believe, we have Filip and Ivana. Wonderful.
So we have time for questions. Apologies once again for the mess up in the beginning. So questions for any of our 4 presentations. Okay. Yes, there is a question over there. If you could stand up, please.
So hi, thank you for the presentation. I have 2 questions for Filip and Ivana and 1 for Zahra. So for Filip and Ivana, I was wondering about the economic models of your project and how connected are you to European and international networks who work outdoor and create in a public space? And the question for Zahra is, did you work on the mediation of the project also while you were doing the performance? I mean, is there any context provided to the audience when this is happening or not? That's it. Thank you.
Filip, Ivana?
Yeah, okay, I'm going to try to answer to the first question and Filip the second. Thank you for the questions, though. So the economical side of the project is quite different because we presented 3 case studies. One of them is at 2 different iterations. In the sense of economical, these are durational long-term projects that try to somehow, we collaborated with real life people. So in a sense, they were not, we lived with the people, we hanged around with the people. So in that sense, we weren't always funded, and we weren't always like trying to make them like project likes. They were mostly like, mostly our aspirations, our desires to somehow really, or maybe activistic attempts to try to make a change in the certain context. But really, for different, for example, projects, we applied for grants, and in that sense, we could have made bigger productions. If your question was referring to if these projects sustainable, or can they provide economical basis so they can exist? In a sense, yes, but this approach should imply also some kind of investment for all the people included, in a sense that they will also activistically, or I don't know, personally be motivated to do these projects without being, you know, financially compensated. So it should imply their personal activistic investment, I guess, into them. I hope that I answered your question.
Very much. Philip, would you like to add anything?
Yes, regarding the connection internationally, I think it was the second question. Yes, fortunately, we have this kind of practices was first mostly recognized by PQ and the team of PQ and our collaborators. So we are now starting to develop this approach and this kind of projects together with the PQ team, but also with other partners like ZETCO in Berlin. And here we see huge potential, this kind of exchange of knowledge, actually, and exchanging of artistic practices, especially connected with our buildings. So the last project that I showed with this small brutalistic, we call it the smallest brutalistic building in the world, is our next project. We recently started. So here I see huge potential, how to say, not only to connect the local context, but with the idea of reclaiming public spaces in a wider international context. So maybe to organize some co-curating programs together there with the different experts, different local communities, international artists, etc. So this is, yeah.
Thank you very much, Filip. Thank you, Ivana. Zahra, would you like to reply?
If I understood well, you mean for the performance happening in the metro station, it was only the live connection. I mean, when the passenger were curious and asking questions, either me or my friend as an assistant who accompany us, or the performer, we could say some words or concept about this project. But for the performance that happening in the exhibition, Parallel Hungary exhibition, we had a booklet, and I already wrote the concept and like a short story, because the topic of this exhibition was Parallel Hungary, and it was like what we could feel, the differences between my culture as an Iranian woman and the European. So, and then I was talking about these cultural differences and this dimensional being in these two words, parallel. And the most important thing why I chose this public space and why I would like to meet these audiences who doesn't have any preordained concept and see the reactions. This all comes to the booklet of the exhibition. And also we had a written text near the monitor, which I showed the video. But in the metro now, actually there was nothing written or anything which tells about, just it was something happening live and the people who are passing, and it was with a little cell phone which recording, that's it.
Thank you very much, Zahra. Thank you very much for the question. Any more questions? If not, I have a question for Julian and the Human Forest Project for Chris, Külli, and Kenneth regarding the question, where are we? Specifically, where is the audience? So Chris, you mentioned that you're hoping to open your project to audiences in the theater. So what will be, what kind of audience experience do you envisage for your project? And the question for Julian is also about audiences. How did you advertise it? What kind of enjoyment or experience was there for your project, for the mediated adaptation? See, I'm the clumsy one here. Sorry.
Do you want us to reply right away without?
Yes, please.
Raising my hand. Yeah, I have to say I have a strong longing for traditional theater setups again. But actually, I would say my COVID experience was the way to get there is changing now, and maybe also new performance, complete new digital theater formats are arising. But I'm myself personally more interested. I'm working on augmented reality on stage, also as a digitization of entities which are expanding the reach of the human body into virtual space, but actually on a physical base. So that's my strong footprint, I would say, that not leaving the physical space and not making a theater in digital space. So that was a long, confusing discussion in Germany. People talk about digital theater and they don't talking about, is this now theater in digital space or is it digital media on stage? So this is a strong difference I would like to make from my point. But Kenneth, could you?
Yeah, for us it's very.
I'm thinking about this that the idea of where is audience and when is a performance for us has already become quite blurry already before the COVID. This question that yes, we have clear performances starting 7 o'clock in this theater, but as COVID brought out this need to deal with this, that is not possible, then, for example, we created this project for ourselves, this 100 sketches, where our research, we just shared a little bit in social media here, there, a little bit of our research results. And in some ways, it's not, this is also an audience, and also the clarification in our own thinking that can happen through this research that we do, and in the end with the performing, that what are we even doing? And then we talk about it, that this is also our audience again. So this kind of a, yes, it's a concrete thing. There will be maybe physical performance, but it's also exciting to think that the audience is quite a wide term.
Thank you very much. Julian, would you like to?
Can you maybe repeat the question?
Yes, I can. It is about the audiences. How did your audiences or spectators of that project engage? How did you advertise that event? What kind of community, what kind of audience did you create by that project?
That is very, very interesting when it comes to hybrid formats, or when we work with hybrid formats, because we always want, or not always, in many cases, we found out that we like that there is two perspectives. There is one of the illusion and one of the creation of the illusion. So like the Duchamp diorama waterfall, where you can either look through the peak hole or you look through the side and see that actually it's not full, it's not real. And this we like a lot about when we work as a hybrid format. But what we especially like when it comes to the digital part is that we can plant it like a almost like an illness or something, like a bacteria in some existing digital means. You put it in a forum and it starts to grow there. You put it in social media and it starts to grow there. You could put it in any kind of porn context and it starts to grow there. You put it in the underground and it starts to grow there, and then it comes back to something that is maybe called high art. And here meet two or several worlds start to meet here, and that is why the chat and the pseudonym is so interesting, also important, that all of a sudden a communication starts to happen between worlds that would never meet. Of course, it's also advertised by the theaters, and there is the URL, and it's in the programs, and it's on the posters, and maybe on the keychains. But what I personally love most is when we start interacting with someone that has no connection to art whatsoever.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the answers. I would like to ask everyone for applause for our speakers online and on the site. Thank you very much for the great presentations, for the great answers. We now have 20 minutes of a break. It will be 20 minutes. Oh, there is a question. A very short question. Yes, let's have a very short question.
Thank you. I have a short question for Julian, because at one point you mentioned there was nothing more serious than the game. And I was wondering what game you were referring to.
I had a little bit problem with that in the preparation, because it was a quote from Maria Magdalena, which I couldn't find an existing Shakespeare quote that she was quoting. So I tried to, as best as I could, translate what she said. And in context of what she said, she was saying that everything has a theatrical approach and a playful approach. So game and play meaning in German the same. And it had a very, very playful approach, and also of course, when you have this classic opening of the whole stage, the whole world is a stage, and we are all actors, and so forth. In that context, I think she means that. I think I have to scroll back. So I think what she meant is that actually in the game we find all the seriousness of life.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much also for the question. And in a break, we'll find rejuvenation and refreshments. Let's come back on the hour, means exactly at 12 o'clock. Thank you very much.